A scream shattered the raucous atmosphere of the biker bar. A thin, dirt-streaked girl, no older than 9, burst through the swinging doors, her eyes wide with terror. My stepfather, he's selling me. Every head in the dimly lit establishment swiveled, the clatter of pool cues and rumble of conversations abruptly ceasing. 40 pairs of eyes, hardened by life and experience, focused on the child. Please, she sobbed, her voice cracking. He's selling me to a man for $5,000. Clark, the chapter president, a man whose imposing frame usually moved with a deliberate, almost languid grace, surged forward with a speed that belied his age. Years of leadership and a deep-seated protective instinct kicked in. Kneeling, he gently cupped her face in his calloused hands. Who is selling you, sweetheart? Tell me. My stepfather, she choked out, tears streaming down her cheeks. He said the man is coming to get me tonight. The air hung thick with menace. Just then, the slam of car doors echoed outside, followed by the crunch of footsteps on the gravel parking lot. 2 figures darkened the entrance, their presence radiating a palpable threat. The first, a wiry man with a cruel, pinched face, spotted the girl and snarled, "There you are, you little brat." He brandished a roll of rope and a strip of duct tape. His eyes scanned the room, taking in the intimidating tableau of bikers surrounding his stepdaughter. He visibly recoiled, a nervous tremor in his voice. "That's my kid," he stammered, attempting a pathetic smile. She's sick in the head, makes up stories, you know?" Sophie, the little girl, buried herself against Clark's leather-clad chest, her small hands clutching his vest. "He already took the money," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "The man behind him, he gave him $5,000. The second man, older, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit that seemed jarringly out of place in the biker bar, stepped forward, radiating an oily charm. "This is a family matter, gentlemen. Best left to." Tank, the chapter enforcer, a mountain of muscle and tattoos, rose slowly to his full height, his eyes like chips of flint. "Family doesn't sell family." His voice, a low rumble, carried the weight of unspoken consequences. The stepfather's eyes darted nervously. "You don't understand," he said quickly, his voice rising in pitch. "She's going to a better home, like adoption. It's all perfectly legal." Razor, a biker known for his unsettling intensity, held up the roll of rope and duct tape. "Adoption with these?" he asked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Understanding dawned on the 2 men. They had stumbled into the wrong place at the wrong time, surrounded by a force they couldn't comprehend. "We're leaving," the stepfather announced, reaching for Sophie. Clark's hand, surprisingly swift, closed around his wrist, stopping him cold. "No, you're not. I'll call the cops," the stepfather threatened, his face flushed with a mixture of fear and desperation. "Please do," Clark replied, his voice calm and unwavering. "Explain to them why you're selling a 9-year-old girl." Then Sophie spoke, her words shattering the fragile facade of normalcy. "He sold my sister Amy last year. He said she went to live with Grandma, but Grandma's been dead for 2 years." The room fell into a deadly silence. The weight of the accusation hung heavy in the air. The well-dressed man, realizing the gravity of the situation, tried to bolt. He managed 2 steps before 3 bikers, moving with surprising agility, tackled him to the ground. "Check his phone," Snake, the chapter's tech expert, ordered. What they found on the phone made even these hardened men sick to their stomachs. A gallery of stolen childhoods, images of young faces haunted by fear, along with addresses, coded messages, and prices attached to each innocent victim. This wasn't the first child he had bought and sold. "You're done," Clark told both men, his voice devoid of emotion. The stepfather, panicking, pulled out a cheap handgun. "You don't know who you're messing with." A wave of sardonic laughter rippled through the bar. 40 bikers, seasoned veterans of countless scrapes and confrontations, stared down the single, trembling weapon. "Neither do you," Clark replied, his eyes cold and unwavering. Sophie's stepfather, Roy Daniels, had thought he was clever. He'd married Sophie's mother 2 years ago, enticed by a hefty life insurance policy. When she died in what the police deemed a suspicious car accident, he inherited everything, including Sophie and her older sister, Amy. "Where's Amy?" Clark demanded, his grip tightening on Roy's wrist. "I don't know," Roy cried, as Tank, with a casual flick of the wrist, twisted his arm behind his back. "Richard took her somewhere." Richard, the buyer, now zip-tied and groaning on the floor, remained stubbornly silent. But his phone once again told the whole story. Snake meticulously extracted every detail, encrypted messages detailing merchandise, bank transfers disguised as legitimate investments, and a horrifying collection of photographs that ignited a burning rage in every biker present. "Call 911, Clark ordered, his voice strained. "But first." He knelt beside Sophie, his expression softening. "Where's your real family, sweetheart?" "My mom's dead," Sophie said quietly, her voice barely a whisper. "My real dad. He died in Afghanistan when I was 3. A wave of understanding washed over the bikers. A gold star child, abandoned and vulnerable. "My mom's parents are in Florida," Sophie continued. "But Roy said, he said they didn't want me." "He lied," Clark said gently, stroking her hair. "We're going to find them." While they waited for the police to arrive, Snake, like a digital bloodhound, hacked into Roy's email account. He unearthed a frantic exchange of messages from Sophie's grandparents, pleading for contact, threatening legal action. Roy had coldly informed them that both girls had perished in the car accident with their mother. "Your grandparents think you're dead?" Clark told Sophie gently, his voice thick with emotion. "They've been mourning you for a year." Sophie dissolved into fresh tears, a torrent of grief and relief. "Can I call them?" "After the police handle this," Clark promised, squeezing her hand. Then, Richard made a fatal miscalculation. He let out a dry, humorless laugh. "You idiots have no idea what you've done. I have connections everywhere. Judges, prosecutors, politicians. I'll be out in an hour." Clark smiled, a cold, predatory expression that sent a chill down Richard's spine. "Maybe, but you'll wish you weren't." The police arrived, led by Detective Sarah Morrison, a seasoned officer known for her sharp instincts and unwavering dedication to justice. One look at the scene, the terrified child, the bound men, and the grim faces of the bikers, and she immediately called for backup. "This is a federal crime," she announced, her voice ringing with authority. "Human trafficking." Roy began screaming about his rights, while Richard demanded his lawyer. But while the police were processing the scene, meticulously collecting evidence and taking statements, every biker in the Iron Horse Saloon was silently memorizing Richard's face, committing his name to memory. Richard Blackwood, a high-powered investment banker with a dark, unspeakable secret. He made bail in 3 hours, just as he'd boasted, and walked out of the jailhouse smirking, confident that his connections would protect him. But his smile died on his lips when he saw 200 bikers, their motorcycles gleaming under the streetlights, waiting for him. "Welcome to hell," Clark said simply, his voice a low growl. They didn't touch him. They didn't need to. Everywhere Richard went, a silent, leather-clad army followed. His office, his home, his exclusive country club. They were always there, a constant, menacing presence. His clients began asking uncomfortable questions. His wife, initially dismissive, finally discovered the horrifying truth about her husband's investments. His boss, horrified by the scandal, summarily fired him. Within a week, Richard had lost everything. His job, his wife, his house, his reputation. His carefully constructed world had crumbled into dust. But the bikers weren't finished. They still had to find Amy. Snake, using his digital skills, tracked Richard's hidden assets to a remote cabin nestled deep in the Appalachian Mountains. 40 bikers, their engines roaring in unison, rode to the cabin, bracing themselves for the worst. They found Amy alive, locked in a squalid basement along with 3 other young girls. all reported missing over the past 2 years. The girls were rescued and taken to safety, their nightmares hopefully behind them. Richard was rearrested, and this time no amount of money or influence could secure his release. But there was still Roy to deal with. He'd managed to make bail, facing only lesser charges since he was merely selling his stepdaughter, not buying children. Roy, convinced he could disappear and start a new life somewhere else, packed his car with the money he'd managed to hide from his deceased wife's insurance payout. He made it 10 miles outside of town before his engine sputtered and died. Sugar in the gas tank, perhaps? Who could prove it? While he waited for a tow truck, stranded on the deserted highway, Roy heard the unmistakable rumble of approaching motorcycles, dozens of them. They circled his broken-down car like sharks, their engines revving menacingly, the chrome glinting in the fading light. Roy frantically called 911, screaming about harassment and threats. The dispatcher, with a strangely detached tone, informed him that all units were currently busy. For 3 agonizing hours, Roy sat trapped in his car, surrounded by a sea of leather and steel. Some of the bikers held signs bearing Amy and Sophie's names, while others displayed photos of their deceased mother. Finally, a tow truck appeared on the horizon, its headlights cutting through the darkness. But the driver, taking one look at the menacing circle of bikers, abruptly slammed on the brakes, made a U-turn and sped away. Roy, his nerves shattered, bolted from the car and ran blindly into the surrounding woods. The bikers followed, walking their bikes slowly, their engines rumbling like distant thunder, a constant reminder of his impending doom. He stumbled into a roadside diner, begging for help, his face streaked with sweat and tears. The patrons, glancing nervously at the bikers massed outside the window, told him to leave. "Please," Roy cried, his voice cracking with desperation. "They're going to kill me." "No," Clark said, his voice resonating from the doorway. Death would be too easy. What happened next became legend in that small town, a cautionary tale whispered in hushed tones. Roy tried to hide in a church, seeking sanctuary within its hallowed walls. The priest, a stern-faced man with eyes that saw into the depths of his soul, took one look at him and declared, "Even God won't protect child sellers from justice." He tried the local hospital, hoping for refuge among the sick and injured. The security guards, alerted to his presence, threw him out onto the street. He tried the bus station, desperately seeking a way to escape. But every bus, inexplicably, was mysteriously full. For 2 days, Roy couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't escape the relentless sound of motorcycles. Everywhere he went, people recognized him, their faces etched with disgust and condemnation. Sophie's story had spread like wildfire, igniting a wave of righteous anger throughout the community. Finally, driven to the brink of madness, Roy did the only thing he could. He walked back to the police station and confessed to everything. His wife's murder, the sale of Amy, the attempted sale of Sophie. He begged to be locked up, pleading for protection from the bikers, who, ironically, had never laid a hand on him but had completely and utterly destroyed him. Roy received a sentence of 40 years without parole, a fitting punishment for his heinous crimes. Richard Blackwood, facing a mountain of evidence and the unwavering determination of the authorities, was sentenced to life without parole for trafficking multiple children. Word of his crimes spread like wildfire through the prison population. He lasted less than a week in general population before begging for permanent solitary confinement, fearing for his life. He remains there to this day, alone with his demons, 23 hours a day. Amy was reunited with Sophie at their grandparents' house in Florida, a joyous reunion after years of agonizing separation. The elderly couple, who had spent their life savings desperately searching for the girls they believed to be dead, were overjoyed to have them back in their lives. The Iron Horse Saloon, forever etched in the town's history, became the beneficiary of a unique and heartwarming initiative. The bikers who had been present that fateful night established a college fund for Sophie and Amy, contributing monthly to ensure that the girls would never want for anything. Sophie's grandparents, wanting to be closer to their granddaughters, moved back to town to raise them properly, surrounding them with love and security. The Hells Angels, as a testament to their unwavering commitment, bought the house next door and transformed it into a clubhouse, ensuring that the safest children in America lived next to 40 guardian angels in leather. Word spread through the criminal underground, reaching the darkest corners of society. Child sellers, traffickers, abusers, they all knew now. Don't operate near the Iron Horse Saloon. Don't hurt children in that town. Don't test the resolve of the Hells Angels. Because 40 bikers who became an army for one little girl will become an army again, every single time.